We got a half hour to go here on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy to welcome on and say good morning to a pair of detectives, Betsy Peterson and Caitlin Demarest, joining us on KCMO. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Let's just pull those mics up nice and close for me. That way, well, there you go, sounding loud and clear. Okay. So let's start off with something we were just talking about off the air, and that is the massive increase in children being targeted online. I know you both deal with this, unfortunately, on a regular basis. So first off, what are the numbers behind the increases in children being targeted online, Betsy, and what that looks like, and how you've been dealing with it here in Lenexa?
Sure. So from statistics we've gotten with NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, between 2021 and 2023, there was a 300% increase in reporting of children being exploited online. And in 2023, NCMEC received over almost 36 million tips of some type of child sexual exploitation happening online.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So then, from your perspective, Caitlin, as you're dealing with these cases, what are you noticing trend-wise, and what should parents right now who are listening be cognizant of and be aware of with this stuff only increasing on the internet and on their phones?
Yeah, I mean, these predators are targeting children on apps, gaming apps. One of the apps that I dislike the most is Roblox. They are, these kids are creating a universe, or these people are creating a universe on there where if you have an interest in Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, you can find a room to go in, and then they're targeting these children by, striking up a chat with them. And then next thing you know, these kids, are very trusting, and they're sending photos to these people and starting what they think are real relationships. That's just long distance. And those applications are supposed to be monitored, but, people will find ways around keywords by, doing a space between lettering, so it doesn't necessarily notify the people who are supposed to be monitoring these rooms.
So are these, this is, I guess, maybe more of a general question on the targeting of these kids. Are they targeting them for child pornography purposes, or are they targeting them for, God forbid, trafficking purposes? Like what's the breakdown there in terms of what the end game is here? Both?
Yeah, I think you see a lot of both. I think it's probably the majority will likely be the what you call child pornography. We now refer to it as CSAM, or child sexual abuse material. And honestly, these predators communicate with each other, so it wouldn't be surprising if they get one child sucked into a conversation, they will share that child with somebody else or introduce them to somebody else if they think they can facilitate some sort of trafficking versus CSAM that they can trade. A lot of it is going to be CSAM, maybe not hands-on, meaning that predator is going to physically touch that child, but that predator will get that child to share photos or videos with them.
Are these predators oftentimes, are they local, are they national, or are they overseas?
Both.
All the above.
We, we also work on the ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and just last week, a warrant was served here in the city of Lenexa for a suspect trying to elicit photos and videos and connect with a 14-year-old. It happens on a very regular basis here in Johnson County and in Lenexa.
Yep, and a lot of times they're taking those photos and they're selling them on the dark web.
Really?
Yes.
So that's they're making money off this too.
Yeah.
It's not just for their own purposes. It's a money making operation.
Absolutely.
And the dark web is very, very real. I know people kind of hear that and it's like almost like a myth.
A conspiracy.
Yes,
or something.
A conspiracy. But yes, there is the dark web, and there is criminal activity happening on that web.
And they're targeting kids right here in our backyard.
Absolutely.
I mean, it'd be naive for parents to think that their kids could not get tied up in this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what about, in terms of things that you want parents to know about, what should they be looking out for? Are there red flags that you would, advise them to keep an eye on?
I think the number one thing is if you're going to allow your child to have a phone or these applications, which I understand at certain ages, it just is what it is. But I think the most important thing to do is to make sure you're very aware of parental restrictions on it. There's so many controls that parents can have, it can just be a real pain to set those up. And most of them can be set up where they can only chat with friends that they connect with. And a lot of these just come with the predators pretending to be another kid gaming with them. And so it's just doing your best to be aware of who they're communicating with and what apps they have.
How about you, Caitlin?
I think that parents should have access to that phone. They should know their child's password. It should be an understanding that I'm going to trust you to have this device, but I also need to have access to it, because it's not about privacy at that point in time. You're protecting your child. And so I think it's very important that a parent has the ability to grab that phone and make sure that they can look at messaging, kids are smart these days. They can hide files and they can password protect pictures. You should always be able to access those files. There shouldn't be any unknown passwords to parents.
And I want to say real quick, I think it's important. We're talking about online stuff, but I think it's important for us to remember that a lot of the cases that we're getting are also kids willingly sharing these images with each other in school right now, where, show our age. We used to write letters back and forth to each other or notes, now it's send nudes. And that's a very regular thing. And it's become to the point where a lot of kids won't date unless you do that first. So it's important that parents realize that this is happening in messages too, with the pressure from schools, not just online.
With the pressures from schools, you mean just the pressure of being in these schools every day?
Yes, I apologize.
Just peer pressure?
Just peer pressure.
Just being a kid these days, I can't even imagine what it's like, because like Betsy said, we used to pass notes and very innocent stuff, but now these kids, they think that this is normal behavior.
Absolutely.
And it's common for them, and the pressure of being popular. Well, this is what the popular kids are doing, so I need to do it too. We get a lot of those kind of cases.
And it's not unique based on socioeconomic levels or anything. It sounds like it's just across the board right now.
Nope, it's just it's basically part of school. And there needs to be, I think, classes that these kids take about internet safety so that they're educated.
And I encourage parents to go to the NCMEC website, which is ncmec.org, I believe. But it has a lot of resources for them, and they've also created a program called Take It Down for when they do know that there are nude images of themselves out there, and ways to work through it. So I encourage parents to go visit that.
Well, as a father of 3 daughters, you're now making me feel like the oldest one's 6, so it seems like I won't let her get a phone until she's about 26 at this point.
That's my plan with my kids.
Yeah, I was going to say, you both have kids. The flip phone's coming back.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty, I had that old Nokia back in the day. Seems like those are kind of maybe the best way to balance this thing, where you want your kids to have some connection, but you block them off from all of the crazy.
Well, so you would think that would be something that parents would want, but I've had cases where parents are like, well, I don't want them to not have access to Instagram, to not have access to TikTok, because then that would make them and alienate them from being popular with their friends.
Well, and we need to be realistic too. Coaches, teams, things like that are moving to things like Snapchat or Instagram or these other, even like the encrypted text apps. Unfortunately, they're moving to those, requiring the kids to have them to communicate with their teams.
Why would coaches want their kids on TikTok?
Oh, so I think for a lot of purposes, recruiting for college is done through Instagram.
And that's how you get, you start your history in a sport. Like, you show the videos, you show what you're doing.
Look at my great reel, look at my great pass in football, whatever.
So it's not necessarily they're having ill intent. It's just they're going to have access to these.
It's a recruiting reel in many respects, right?
Like Twitter, these kids will get on there and say, I just got an offer from such and such college. I feel blessed. So they're basically letting other coaches know, hey, you better get on this recruiting train if you want me to go to your school. So they're using it a lot, and I see it a lot with sports, and maybe not so much, but there's also those gaming applications like Fortnite, we're starting to see predators trying to talk to kids on Fortnite and all those games. It's very unsettling on how many places that kids can be touched by complete strangers.
I didn't expect us to take all the time on this, but I just think this issue is critical right now, and parents care so much about it. And if they don't care about it, they should care about it. So what is you've talked about some of the advice to parents, just being aware, not letting them have free reign on these things. Is there anything else that you would make sure they know or they're aware of or recommend to them with the way the world is right now and what you're doing as detectives here with Lenexa PD?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that we're always willing to give training to anybody that feels like they could use it in a group or anything like that. But I think the number one key is to have an open communication with your child. Let them know that they can trust you and that you'll support them, because a lot of these things don't get reported up front because of the fear and the embarrassment. Have that open communication with your child and recognize that everybody makes mistakes. And if you work with your child, the best honest communication you have, then you will do your best to avoid it. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
And what about, Caitlin, you've been at this for 10 years. I feel like 10 years ago, parents were just more naive on this stuff. The phone was the smartphone was relatively new. It came out, 17 years ago, the iPhone. So the one thing I'll say for now is I guess parents raising kids now are more aware of this stuff in a way maybe they weren't 10 years ago. So that is one good thing going on.
Sure. I think a big thing is education. One, educate yourself on the applications that you're allowing your kids to download and what the purposes are for that application. Do they get to talk to other people? Can other people communicate with your child? And also educate your child. I know sex is a very taboo subject and sometimes hard to talk about, but the more your kid knows about the dangers and the possibilities that could happen by sending your photo out and doing that stuff, I think that is a good way to deter that.
Well, this was a great but also serious conversation to be having right now because parents need to hear it. So Lenexa detectives Betsy Peterson and Caitlin Demarest, thank you both for being here
Thank
on
you
KCMO.
for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.